Napier in Gainesville. And then the big one, Saturday night, the traditional powerhouse Columbus game in Columbus, number 5 Notre Dame, number 2 Ohio State, just the 7th all-time meeting between these two legendary programs. And Vegas does not expect much of a game. Ohio State is a 17.5-point favorite. That information was relayed to the coach of Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, yesterday. Here's what he thought of it.
Well, I didn't know that. I'm going to write that down. You said 17.5 points, right? We'll use that in the team meeting today, It's good to know. I haven't paid much attention to the spread, but I remember that one time we were on College Game Day, I said just keep making go up and up.
So he says those are fighting words. Here are Heather and Paul with the very latest. Paul, what did you think of that? 17.5 points. He's putting it up on the bulletin board. What do you think?
Greeny, is Newt Rockne rolling over in his grave that the Notre Dame coach is feeling disrespected because somebody in Vegas doesn't make him the favorite? I mean, this is really ridiculous because everyone knows Ohio State, or should know, that Ohio State is one of the best teams we've seen in a long time. And Notre Dame is going through a transition. So Coach Freeman, we all love you, but calm down. And I know Notre Dame fans are ready to get angry again, Greeny. When I was here a couple weeks ago, I dared to say that they were going to lose this game. I think I heard from Lou Holtz. I heard from pretty much every Notre Dame fan in the world, with the exception of Pope Francis.
but from what I understand, he's trying to get your number, and it just hasn't worked out. Heather, here's the question I got a lot of people asking me. Okay, we think Ohio State is one of the top 2 teams in the country. Maybe they look better than Notre Dame. But how can Notre Dame be the 5th-ranked team in the country and be a 17.5-point underdog? Those two things don't seem to go together, Heather. How do we explain them?
Well, Notre Dame being the underdog has a lot to do with what Paul just said, but they're also missing their leading wide receiver, Avery Davis, who is out with a torn ACL for the rest of the season. They have already thin position. Nobody behind him has caught more than 20 catches, and only one player with starting experience. So they have to figure some things out offensively. I talked to Marcus Freeman, and he told me their number 1 priority is running the ball. But defensively, Greeny, this is a big reason why they're the underdog, is because they're going against the number 1 offense in the country with C.J. Stroud at quarterback, a Heisman contender. They've got Travion Henderson at running back. I mean, they've got Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver. They've got to stop that running game, and Marcus Freeman told me that they want to have Stroud hold on to that ball just a little bit longer so that they can fluster him and force him into some mistakes. But that is a tall challenge for the Irish.
Let's talk about what's at stake here, okay? Because some might look at it and say because Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference and the rest of their schedule isn't what it might be if they played in the Big Ten, as Ohio State does, that they need this game more. But if I wanted to make an argument, Heather, this game is in Columbus. Ohio State looks like they are going to have a huge season. That if Notre Dame plays them tough, if they lose 36-10, then all bets are off. But if they lose this game 36-30 and they're right in it in the 4th quarter, I would argue this game actually might wind up working in their benefit as the season goes on. How do you assess what's at stake for the Irish on Saturday night?
Well, how they play matters, and you pointing out that 2 scenarios in the scores is extremely important, because if you're an independent like Notre Dame, you have to remember the selection committee protocol requires everyone in that room to deem them unequivocally one of the 4 best teams in the country. What does that mean? That means there's no doubt in that room that they're among the 4 best teams. And Greeny, here's why, if it is a close game, you don't write them off entirely. Remember, they play Clemson and USC. What happens, Greeny, if they win the rest of those games on their schedule? Clemson wins the ACC, and USC, by some chance, wins the Pac-12. You've got a 1-loss Notre Dame with a close loss to probably the Big Ten champs and 2 wins against Power 5 conference champions. You're looking at a very strong resume for the Irish without a conference championship game. But the reality here is if they lose that game, they've got to win out and they have got to look the part, because I go back to that protocol, unequivocally one of the 4 best teams.
Fair enough. Paul, go ahead with what the stakes of this one on Saturday night for both.
Kowski comes in around November 1st. He'll get better and he'll save the season.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, but Mike Tannenbaum continues to be bullish overall on the Bucs, even if not early. Now, Brady, as we talked about yesterday, was named by his peers the #1 player in football. And he quoted yesterday, or he tweeted yesterday, "This is just a testament to the family, teammates, coaches, staff, and every single one of you who've supported me along the way. Thank you all. Let's go get another one." And he tagged the Buccaneers. That is very different from the way Brady was talking on Saturday night after their preseason game. Listen to this.
It's all personal. You know, everyone's got different situations they're dealing with, so we all have really unique challenges to our life. And, you know, I'm 45 years old, man. There's a lot of going on. So, you know, you just got to try to figure out life the best you can. And it's a continuous process. So I'm ready to go.
All right, so Ninko, you weren't here yesterday. Again, Ninko and Brady played together for years. You're very good friends. A lot of us were really struck by how different he sounded from the way he normally does and how different he looked from the way he normally looks. What thoughts did you have?
He's got a lot of stuff going on, and I'll say stuff. But again, he's 45 years old. He was retired. He's coming back. Now there's more information on potentially him being in different teams and different locations and having more control over things that really are out of his control now. So again, there's a family dynamic to things. You know, there's the football dynamic. I just don't think we've ever seen a Tom Brady miss any training camp days. I mean, I think back to when we were in the Patriots, and if he missed one day, it was like a massive issue because he always wanted to be on top of things, and timing is so important offensively and chemistry, and he's been in Tampa. So I think the chemistry is already there, but the biggest concerns I have are, number one, the offensive line, because when you're 45 years old, you have to have protection from the inside out. So the inside of the offensive line has to be the best part of the offensive line.
Right.
Because when you're stepping up into your throws, and you've seen guys for years run past Tom, that doesn't bother him. It's up the middle. It's when guys are in his face, when he can't step up into a clean pocket. That's really a trouble for many quarterbacks, especially when you're at your age, at his age, and now he's trying to make another run at a Super Bowl. Those stressors of the football stress plus outside whatever he's dealing with, that's another aspect of things that we haven't seen before.
That's exactly right. And again, I've made it clear for anyone, if you're just joining our show here, we're not speculating on this show about anything. What he wants to talk about and when he wants to talk about it, that's when he'll do it. But it is reasonable and fair, because he's the one pointing it out, to say he clearly has stuff going on in his head, whatever it may be. We've never wondered if he was 100% all in before, because he's been more all in than maybe any player in the history of any sport. But is there reason to be concerned right now that maybe he isn't all the way in the way he needs to be?
Well, I think that in a football sense, when you're on the field, you have to be all in when you're on a football field. And if you're not all in, that's when, you know, guys get hurt, guys get injured, because you're thinking of other things. You're not playing as fast. You're not on top of everything that you usually are. So I think that when he's on the field, he'll be 100% locked in. But it's outside of that. What distractions will cause him to maybe not be as prepared or as ready to go as he once was in years past, when he was on the plane looking at tape for the next week, traveling back from an away game.
Yeah.
You know, like those are the things that might affect when you're on the field.
Those are the things that when you're 45 years old and you have a lot of stuff going on that maybe fall through the cracks a little bit in ways they hadn't before. Does any of this give you pause with all of your confidence?
A little pause, but if anybody could do it, it's Tom Brady, because he's so smart, and to Neil's point, he's so prepared. He has the answers to the test. So if anybody could overcome it, Greeny, it would be him. But on paper, obviously, football is a game of preparation, and he's missing a lot of steps right now.
The more people you talk to around the league, Dan, as I know, people reacting to all of this, what sorts of things are you hearing?
People are hesitant to bet against Brady, right? I mean, like, he's proven so many people wrong so many times. But I think the point of preparation is the key one. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but like this is his hallmark. I mean, so if he's missing days in camp, if there are times when he would have been preparing ahead of the game that instead he's dealing with other stuff that isn't football related, it doesn't take much to throw you off from having a good season to a lousy one in this league, and that would be that's what gives me concern.
And the one thing I would say, the days away, when you're being corrected by a coach, it's one thing, but when you're being corrected by Tom, like if Tom is directing you and telling you, you messed that up, you need to be here, you need to be there, you need to be better here, that weight is a lot different than when a coach is telling you that.
And that's been a massive part of his value to that organization these last 3 years.
We'll see what warrants happening with Tom Brady. It is very much something to keep an eye on. In the meantime, we have a monster weekend of college football ahead of us. It's week 1, and key games will include the defending national champions, Georgia, number 3 ranked in the country this year, taking on number 11, Oregon. That game is in Atlanta. You'll see it Saturday afternoon on ABC. Meanwhile, on 7th ranked Utah, coming off a Pac-12 title and a Rose Bowl berth, will visit the Swamp to take on Florida as the Gators begin the new era